want to talk about cortisol for a second and specifically whether the bad rap that it's copping at the moment is warranted, is justified for everything that it seems to be being blamed for in perimenopause and menopause. If you look around at social media, cortisol is being blamed for everything it seems, from cortisol face, that puffy looked face, to menobelly, or the expanding of the midsection during menopause. Menobelly, not a fan of that term, by the way, but it's to blame for all of these things. And influencers will have you think that it's not that you're eating too much. It's not that you're eating too many calories. Cortisol is what's to blame for you putting on weight during menopause. And whenever we hear outlandish claims along these lines, I always like to put a bit of a logical mask on it, look it through my no BS meter and see if it holds up. So I want you to think about this for a minute. Imagine if we're in a war-torn country or a country where there's famine, there's no food security, there's a shortage of food, and you're worried about where your next meal is coming from, whether you might actually starve to death. Do you think in that scenario that your stress levels might be high, that your cortisol might be through the roof, in fact, if you think there's an actual danger that you might die of starvation? I think that probably would be. Imagine if cortisol was so clever that instead of letting you starve to death, it actually helps you put on weight. Imagine the hormonal stroke of genius that would be if cortisol saved you from starvation because you're stressed. You didn't starve to death. You actually put on weight and you were protected from starvation. That is the line that a lot of these influencers are peddling when it comes to cortisol. But in fact, we know if people genuinely do not have enough food to eat, they do, in fact, starve to death. So that whole theory around cortisol doesn't hold up when you put it to that logical test. Now, does this mean that cortisol is not a factor in weight gain? No, it does not. And I'll tell you why. Here's what cortisol does do. Cortisol can, obviously, it's your stress hormone, right? So when you're stressed, what do a lot of people do? They eat more, they comfort eat, or they drink alcohol to try to manage the stress. So that's a very real factor. Also, when people are stressed and high cortisol, they are tired, they are more fatigued, so they move less. They might have less intensity in their workouts. They might just go for less walks because they just have less energy. They sleep poorly, so therefore their recovery is worse. So cortisol can, in fact, have an impact on a lot of downstream factors in weight gain. But in and of itself, in the absence of a calorie surplus, cortisol does not make you put on weight. So the great thing about this news is that you have more control over this than you think. When someone says to you, you just need to balance your cortisol, what does that mean? Okay, I'll tell you what things help you manage your stress levels. Eating a good diet with enough protein and plants. Getting some exercise every day. Going out for walks in nature, in sunshine. I'm just on my way back from my workout right now. On the way there, my anxiety level was probably at about an 8 out of 10. Now I reckon it's at about a 3. So exercise, getting in nature, all of those things help you manage your cortisol. Getting enough sleep is so key. Even with my clients, stress is one of the pillars that we work on. It is absolutely a factor in weight gain and being able to lose weight sustainably. So we do work on stress and sleep and diet and exercise, and all the things that help you manage your stress also help you manage your weight. So we don't need to worry about balancing your cortisol in and of itself, other than the foundational habits that we're going to work on anyway when it comes to fat loss. So the great news about this is it makes it a lot simpler. You don't need to be an endocrinologist to understand how you balance your cortisol. You just follow those foundational habits that are simple, not easy, simple, but not easy. And that will help you manage your stress. That will help you in turn manage your weight. Hope that helps.